So, just doing something different today. This is an article that I have been writing and updating over the years. It's just kind of a journal entry of kind of my career path, and as I've kind of waffled into different directions. And basically, every year or two, I will update this and I kind of reread the entire thing. And I figured I would just read it out loud and throw it up on YouTube and see what people think. So here goes. It's called Finding the Right Work. Originally published in July 2019. When I started radical application development in 2015, one of my core goals for the business was to get into app development. At that time, I had built several business systems and databases and was eager to make a consumer product. I didn't have the time to pursue this goal full time, but throughout 2016, I learned a lot about Swift and iOS. Repeatedly, I ran into issues with the apps I wanted to make. Most of my ideas seemed like they would be achievable, but ended up being beyond my skills, far beyond my skills. I vastly underestimated how complex iOS development was. Each time I ran up against what I could do, I gave up instead of pressing on. For example, I built an awesome time tracking app using core data, but when I tried to synchronize the data between devices, I had nothing but issues. I lacked the skills and the confidence to write my own syncing engine, so I put the product on hold and never picked it back up. A brief digression. I do still use that for my own time tracking, but it has never made it beyond my personal use. But it is a really handy app. Maybe someday. Anyway, picking back up. Toward the end of 2016, my friend and later podcast co-host suggested that I check out SpriteKit. I had never even considered making a game, but I worked through some tutorials and decided to give it a shot. I spent most of November that year building a small game called Random Arrow. I released the app into the iOS App Store in December of 2016. While Random Arrow never took off, I gained something valuable from it. Working in SpriteKit and Swift on a simple game gave me the confidence I needed. Despite having no idea how game engines worked and little real programming experience, I was able to produce and ship something. Looking back at Random Arrow now, it's sort of a silly idea. But I'm still glad I made it. The confidence I gained from that project led me to expand my consulting services beyond FileMaker. I started making web applications in PHP, which has paid the bills ever since, and I started learning Unity and Unreal Engine. In 2017, Dave, my podcast co-host and friend, and I decided to attend a local development meetup. I wanted to share Random Arrow and was eager to meet some real game developers. While we were at the meetup, Dave tried Oculus Rift. He was pretty impressed by it, and so was I. I didn't actually try it at the meeting as I was kind of nervous that I would look silly. I purchased a VR headset, an HTC Vive, and a PC to go with it, and turned my focus to VR development. I'm not going to go into details here, but I spent the next 2 years with my attention focused on VR. You can get most of that story from the VR Hermits podcast. As with the early iOS projects, I got in way over my head with VR development. While I learned a ton about Unity, C#, 3D modeling, animation, and AI systems, I never shipped a consumer product. I kept my business running during this time with consulting work, mostly FileMaker or PHP projects, but I spent almost all of my time and energy on VR. At one point, I was working so much, I actually did a lot of damage to my hands and wrists, damage which I'm still dealing with today. In spring of 2019, I finally decided to step away from VR development, at least where games are concerned. I know enough about game development now to know that I'll never make a great game. I'm more than capable of using the tools and doing the development, but I lack the type of vision and creativity needed to make a great game. If I really wanted to, I could make some bad games, but I'm not interested in doing that. I spent my time since then working on FileMaker, WordPress, and PHP consulting projects. I also started working on a new iOS app. something that will be the focus of this blog over the next few months. After nearly 2 years of trying to get good at something I'll never be good at, I've rediscovered that I am good at some things. I have a lot of skill when it comes to problem solving, user interface design, data modeling, and I'm going to spend my time and attention on those skills from now on. I may revisit VR development someday, but not as a game designer or developer. I'd love to create some productive applications in VR and AR, possibly even expanding on the projects I'm building now. Now this little side quest into VR is over, I'm making real progress on iOS development. Some of the concepts that baffled me in 2016 are easy to grasp now. There are also a lot of new APIs and advancements in iOS and Swift. I could even pick up my old time tracking app again, as Apple has made new APIs for working with Core Data and CloudKit. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm on the right track. So that's the end of the original article from July 2019. Picking up in November 2021, this version of Joe was a little angry. So let's start there. 2019 Joe was stupid and wrong. While he did take some time away from VR development, and he did give up game development completely, turning his attention to iOS development was the worst thing he's done in his career. He wasted 8 months of our life building skills in an environment that 2020 Joe grew to despise. We can say with some certainty now that iOS development, or any native development for that matter, is something we'll never really enjoy. Instead, 2020 Joe focused on getting better at web development. FileMaker, WordPress, and PHP still generate most of our revenue, but we also learned a ton about front-end development. 2021 Joe is focused on working in Vue.js for several front-end projects. He recently tried to gain some skills in React, but gave up when it became clear that he doesn't think that way. As far as VR development is concerned, 2021 Joe is combining his skills as a web developer and a UI designer to build UI interfaces in 3D using WebXR. VR development was never the distraction. Trying to make games was. The only smart thing that 2019 Joe said in this article was, I have a lot of skill when it comes to problem solving, user interface design, data modeling, and I'm going to spend my time and attention on those from now on. 2022 Joe better step up and start making real progress on VR, UI, and UX. In the meantime, 2021 Joe is busy writing a screenplay. So just some context on why 2021 Joe is so upset with 2019 Joe. 2019 was the worst year of my business ever. I made well below the median income and pretty close below to the poverty line that year because I went so thoroughly into one project that never went anywhere, and I ignored and turned away valuable consulting projects in the process while I was going down that rabbit hole. It's a pretty bad time. I have learned not to do that, and I'm much more careful about balancing my consulting work and my side projects these days. Anyway, that's the end of that digression. So now jumping forward into March 2022. This is an update from Future Joe. Wow, 2021 Joe sounded a little upset. He was on the right track though. We've spent the past few months learning a ton about WebXR, A-Frame, and Babylon.js. We started and completed a series called A View into 3D, where we explored a few 3D libraries in the context of Vue. The idea was to look at A-Frame, Babylon.js, 3JS, etc., and how they could each interface with reactive data in Vue.js. While A-Frame was the most natural fit, we settled on Babylon.js because of its advanced GUI features and rock-solid community. We also started a new long-term side project called Canvatorium. It's an experimental design lab for spatial computing. The project uses Babylon.js 5.0 and Vue 3 to explore spatial UI and UX concepts, reactive data, etc. Canvatorium, being structured and thought of as a long-term side project, is one of the most enjoyable things we've done. It has no deadlines or pressure, no real requirements, no stress. It's a place where we can try out concepts, document things We're learning and build bits of pieces of other projects and ideas. With 2 months of Camatorium behind us, we wonder what far future Joe will think about it. Did he stick with it? Did it help him or anyone else? We are still paying the bills. Lots of Vue, front-end work, tons of WordPress work, and a smattering of FileMaker development. We need to add Babylon.js to the list of consulting services. P.S. 2021 Joe did finish that screenplay, but has not had time to make it into the VR production that it deserves to be. All right, that's the last of the updates from the past, and today's update from, well, me, this iteration of me anyway, Future Joseph, March 2024. Starting out, 2022 Joe was right on track. Camatorium has been one of our best projects to work on. It has given us the opportunity to build and learn in public, even when the product of the work wasn't something we could share. Camatorium has also been important in getting new clients and projects. In late 2023, we started expanding Camatorium beyond the scope of Vue and Babylon. The 5000 series includes labs built for Vision Pro using Swift UI and RealityKit. We are planning other series as well, such as 3JS. The biggest change over the past 2 years is that we stopped trying to change directions. Past Joe was always trying to find a single vector on which we could travel. That obsession is why we changed course so many times. Quote, I'm going all in on game development, end quote. No, I'm all UI UX. No, I'm all web dev, and so on. Over the years. In 2023, we realized what we are, a generalist developer. Since embracing that path, everything has become easier. Picking projects and clients no longer involves trying to fit them within our plan. Instead, we consider if the project is something we can do and if we can make decent money at it, and most importantly, if we want to do it. We have never had so many options. Another huge change was the release of Apple Vision Pro. Every version of Past Joe has been waiting for this since January 2017, when we had our first taste of the immersive future. By the time it was announced in WWDC 2023, we were already working in Xcode and Swift again for a retainer client. It was easy to predict that we would end up building apps for Apple Vision Pro. This time the focus is a bit different. Instead of trying to build products to sell, the focus has been on building in public and documenting everything. Camatorium has been a huge part of this. So has a silly project called Project Graveyard. The Babylon.js labs in Camatorium brought us great opportunities, and Vision OS labs are starting to do the same thing. Looking back at everything we've done, we used to feel bad about wasting so much time. That has all changed. It's clear now that the skills we have gained, the databases, the 2D UI UX work, years of experience with native and web development, a deep understanding of 3D and VR, and a constant desire to build and explore, all are coming together to help us build for spatial computing. The next few years are going to be wild. It didn't feel like it at the time, but everything Past Joe has done has set us up to win in the age of spatial computing. And that's it. I hope you got something out of it. I know I did. This was mostly kind of a personal exercise, just kind of keep myself in context over the years. But let me know if this was helpful to you, and let me know what you think of this weird format of just reading an article next to a lake in my office.